Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 288 of our trip around the United States. We just completed the last page that we needed to wrap up the state of Utah, and now we are starting into Wyoming. We have entered the state from the furthest southwest corner coming out of Utah, and from here we've got about 9 days to spend exploring the state. We're gonna break this up in half. Over the next 4 days, we'll be making our way along the eastern edge of the state and then up to the northeast corner of the state. For our first of those days, today, we're gonna be making our way mostly north over 360 miles as we climb our way up to Pinedale. In Pinedale, we will bring our day to an end by pursuing the DeLorme Challenge for the state. On the second day, we're going to begin working our way back south out of Pinedale once again. We'll drop south to the interstate and then begin to make our way east. We're going to drop down along the northern edge of Colorado to finish off the last 3 pages we need there and then go pursue the DeLorme Challenge. On the third morning, we will wake up and we will have 415 miles to cover as we pop our way back up into Wyoming once again and then begin making our way east toward the corner of the state. On the last day that we're going to be traveling in the northeast corner of Wyoming, we only have 215 miles to cover. That's because most of that day is set aside for us to do a hiking adventure. That's not going to happen. So that fourth day is going to kind of merge with that third day, and we're going to bring that part of Wyoming to an end. I know between here and there, we are going to have lots of beautiful miles and views to cover because this is a beautiful state. And I can't wait to see what's ahead of us for the next few days. So let's get out there and see it together. Come on, let's go.
Welcome to Wyoming, the 10th largest state by area within the United States.
Despite its vast size, this is the least populated state in the country, with just a little more than 500,000 people living here. This is a land of wide open landscapes, mountain ranges, and amazing views all the way through. Of course, as soon as we came across the state line from Utah, we immediately started sinking our teeth into our targets for the counties and the pages. There are long jumps on the highways between finds, but coming into most of the small cities, there's usually at least a geocache or two to be able to track down. Even better was to see just how clever some of these geocaches could be, including this Travel Bug Lodge, which has individual suites for each travel bug checking in. You'd be hard-pressed to find a hotel better than this one. While you may not see many people traveling the roads out here in Wyoming, you can expect to see a lot of cattle. Spread across the Wyoming landscape, you can expect to find more than 1.2 million cattle, meaning that there are twice as many cows in this state as there are humans. As a cattle herder mix, Aichan was very appreciative of this fact and was happy to see so many cows as we continued to traverse along these empty, lonely roads from one cache to the next. Entering the state from its southwest corner, we immediately began to make our way north along Highway 189 through Big Piney up to Pinedale. With a population of only about 2,000 people, Pinedale is certainly not a big city, but it is still the county seat of Sublette County, and an important stopping place for those coming to Pinedale seeking outdoor activities like fishing, hiking, camping, boating, and hunting, which, as luck would have it, is exactly what we came up here to do, hunt. But not hunt for live game. Instead, we came up here to hunt the DeLorme Challenge Final for the state. Perched just above the sandy shores of Fremont Lake, the DeLorme Challenge Final makes the perfect place to bring our day to an end. Aichan and I were very excited to make the short climb up to the top of the hill, add our names to the logbook, and bring our first day here in Wyoming to a close. Our second day spent in the state begins with a sunrise just outside of Rock Springs. Most of this day will be spent in Colorado, but first we have to make a find in DeLorme page 65, which requires us dropping down south off Interstate 80 toward Bitter Creek. As soon as we hopped off the interstate, the pavement came to an end, and we found ourselves crossing through open cattle country for the rest of the morning. Aichan did not seem to mind this in the least. Not only was she thoroughly entertained with all the cows that we had to see along our way, but pretty much any of the four-legged hoofed species we came across were keeping her on the edge of her seat all morning long. Those lonely roads and the animals occupied them eventually led us to the Laccolade Station ruin.
This is the site of a former overland trail in Sweetwater County, found between the Big Pond Station and the Doug Springs Station. The station had been constructed from stone slabs back in 1860, and even today the ruins of some of those walls still remain standing. Back in its day, this fort housed Company Bravo of the 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry. The fort included a barracks, corral, and a gun tower, with overlapping fields of fire from the gun pits on the surrounding hillsides. Having successfully completed our long drive out for a qualifier in DeLorme Page 65, Aichan and I begin to make our way through Page 67 into Colorado, stopping first in the city of Saratoga. I'd already had a look at the conditions ahead of us in Colorado, and they were cold and snowy the entire way through the mountains for the rest of our afternoon. That meant it was more important now than ever to make sure that Aichan got a daily walk in, so we stopped at the Cakewalk Dog Park and took a nice walk around all the little doggy streets. She enjoyed her casual stroll through the dog park, blissfully unaware of the adventures ahead of us in the mountains of Colorado. As soon as we were done with our stroll through the city, we began to head south toward Colorado, with the elevation constantly rising and the snow on the ground getting deeper and deeper. Rest assured though, not only did we safely make it from one side of the mountain range to the other, but we made it back into Wyoming with extra time to spare, beginning our third day in Douglas. As the county seat of Converse County, with a population of a little over 6,000 people, this is one of the bigger cities that we'd be visiting on our 3-day stint around the south and east edges of the state. We only had one must-do target at the city, and that was the geocache hidden at the Douglas Railroad Museum. The Railroad Museum, doubling as a visitor center for Douglas, is housed in a historic train depot built all the way back in 1886, even before Wyoming achieved statehood. The museum exhibits, all free to the public, include a growing collection of rail history and memorabilia to check out. Just outside the depot, you can take a walk around the 8 rail cars spread around Locomotive Park. And while we could not climb aboard any of the trains today due to the weather and the season, many of these trains are opened up under better conditions for the public to take a walk through. This is now exactly the kind of spot that I look for to take Aichan out on her daily walk. It's not too far, maybe only about 500 feet or so around the grounds, with plenty of places for both of us to stop off, enjoy the smells, and take in the sights. It felt as though we had taken the express track out of Douglas all the way up to Upton in Weston County, with a population of about 900 people. We only stayed just long enough to make one quick find, pay our respects to the Veterans Memorial, and then continue moving on down the road once again into Sundance. As the county seat of Crook County, Sundance boasts a population of slightly more than 1,000 people. The city is named for a Lakota word meaning sun watching dance. It is also the only place that the Sundance Kid was ever incarcerated, taking the town's name as his own nickname. As with the previous 2 days spent exploring Wyoming, there were not an abundance of geocaches to find outside the cities, but the ones we did find were rather clever. It seemed like any time we flew past a welcome to sign, we knew we were closing in on yet another find. Aichan did her best to help me with each hunt, but if the geocaches are not located near ground level, she's a little bit inhibited. It's really the thought that counts anyway, as long as she's out there helping me hunt.
This is a clear sign that the birds are not at all amused that they can't get into this birdhouse. What you guys even put this out there for if it doesn't have a door, man?
For our final stop along the southern and eastern edges of Wyoming, we come across the Devil's Tower National Monument. Established on September 24th of 1906 by President Theodore Roosevelt, this was the first U.S. national monument. The Devil's Tower itself is a massive butte, rising 867 feet from summit to base. The Devil's Tower can easily be spotted from several miles out, but the best views are from within the national park boundary. We may have come here to view the Devil's Tower, but Aichan was much more interested in the field filled with prairie dogs as far as the eye can see. In fact, pretty much the entire time we spent traversing the park together, there was wildlife to see in one way, shape, or form. Definitely the right place to end our first half of the tour of the state.
All right, and it looks like that is going to do it for the first half of our time spent here in the state of Wyoming. We began our journey coming out of Utah in the furthest southwest corner of the state. 3 days ago. From there, we made our way up north to Pinedale, both to cover some pages on the western edge of the state and to get the DeLorme Challenge final, before dropping back down south and following the southern edge of the state all the way until we got just a little toward the center, where we dropped down. We did 3 pages in Colorado, finished off the DeLorme Challenge, and then came back up into Cheyenne in the very southeast corner of the state. We began our day in Cheyenne and covered down on 2 days as we made our way north along the eastern edge of the state, all the way into the northeast corner of Wyoming. It's only fitting that we finish at the halfway point, having started in the southeast and culminating in the northeast. Definitely no better place for us to wrap up at our halfway point than here at the Devil's Tower National Monument. This was the perfect place for Aisha and I to bring our day to an end before we head into the hotel and get some steaks for a delicious dinner coming up. Can't wait. Thank you guys for joining us as we made our way through the first half of our Wyoming plan. Can't wait to see what the second half of the state has in store for us as we make our way west along the northern edge and through the interior on our way into Idaho before popping up to Montana. Like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.